The evolution of Indian map. Hello friends, have you ever wondered why the Indian map evolved from this to this? These are not mere lines on a map. This is the story of our country and people. The Indian people's history is full of unity, conflict, and resilience. So, let's see what stories lie behind these borders. Partition. At midnight on August 15, 1947, the Indian subcontinent changed forever with the retreat of the British Raj, and the birth of two new nations left an indelible mark on their populations. The partition of the British Raj created India and Pakistan. Millions of people migrated to Pakistan and India and reoriented themselves. This process was violent and sorrowful, and many leaders at that time rightly concluded the partition was a tragedy. Let's look at how the map changed. Pakistan in 1947 also includes present-day Bangladesh as its territory, and then it is called East Pakistan and Pakistan as West Pakistan. India's borders were roughly similar to today, except for princely states that had yet to decide whether to join India or Pakistan. Integration of princely states. Princely states were semi-autonomous regions in the Indian subcontinent. Those rulers maintained internal sovereignty but accepted British supremacy. Out of 562 princely states, 14 joined with Pakistan, and the remaining joined with India. Many states joined willingly as they could see the writing on the wall, but some wanted to stay independent or join Pakistan. India, under leaders like Vallabhbhai Patel and V.P. Menon, used diplomacy and force to integrate these states. For example, this princely state, Junagadh, is present in the modern Indian state of Gujarat. In 1948, the ruler was a Muslim Nawab who wanted to join Pakistan, but the majority of the population was Hindu and wanted to join India. The Indian government held a plebiscite, and the majority of the Junagadh population voted to join India. The Nawab was exiled to Pakistan and he never came back to India again in his life. Another one of the princely states that resisted India's annexation was Hyderabad. It was one of the largest and richest vassal states under the British Raj, and it got the status of 21 guns fired as a salute in the form of respect. The ruler of Nizam was Muslim, and he wanted to remain independent. If it was not possible, at least he wanted to join Pakistan, but most of its population was Hindu. The Indian government used Hyderabad's public opinion as a pretext to launch Operation Polo to annex the state of Hyderabad with India. The last princely state we are going to see is Kashmir, which is one of the largest princely states in India with a diverse population, but the majority of them were Muslims and was led by a Hindu king. He too wanted to remain independent if possible or wanted to join India if he could, but most of the population was against it. At that time, tribal militias from Pakistan invaded Kashmir because they wanted Kashmir to join Pakistan. This forced the king to sign the agreement to annex Kashmir with India, and this led to the First Indo-Pak War. Before moving forward, I wanted to state my opinion that India was wrong here, at least in annexing Kashmir. Because even with their excuse for capturing the other two princely states, the majority of the population wanted to join with India. But not so with Kashmir. The Indian government cited Pakistan's invasion as an excuse to annex Kashmir, even though India was also not against using the military to annex the territory, as we had seen in the case of Hyderabad. And because of this, even after more than 70 years, Kashmir remains an unresolved issue between Pakistan and India. But this is not a morality class, we are just looking into the history of the subcontinent as an impartial bystander. Let's take up where we left off, that is, the Indo-Pakistan War. First Indo-Pak War. Pakistan invaded Kashmir, and Indian soldiers were airlifted and sent to Kashmir to fight against Pakistani militias. This war concluded in 1948 as the winter season began, as both Indian and Pakistani counterparts could not make much headway because of harsh winter terrain and logistics. In 1949, the UN brokered a truce between the two nations, and the war ended in a stalemate. The conclusion was that India retained most of Kashmir, but Pakistan captured some of it. And we Indians call it Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, and Pakistan calls it Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. These borders remain contested even to the present day. Reorganization of Indian states. India, in 1956, as a young country, wanted to reorganize its states along linguistic lines to promote better administration and national unity. Before that, the Indian states were based on a mix of historical, geographical, and administrative factors. For example, Telugu-speaking areas were carved out. Madras merged into Andhra Pradesh while remaining Tamil-speaking areas formed as Tamil Nadu. Next, let's take a look at Travancore and Cochin princely states merged with Malabar district from Madras state as Kerala. This grouping was done because the majority population speaks Malayalam, and the cultural and historical context of these populations was taken into consideration in the formation of God's own country, Kerala. Next princely state, Mysore extended to include more Kannada-speaking areas, thus Karnataka formed. Similarly, Madhya Pradesh was carved out by merging the Madhya Bharat, Vindhya Pradesh, and Bhopal princely states. These states have the majority of the population speaking Hindi or using it as a lingua franca and have cultural links to each other. In 1960, the Bombay state, being bilingual, was divided into Maharashtra and Gujarat as an Indian country, reorganizing its states on linguistic lines and ease of administration. Marathi was the dominant language in Maharashtra, and Gujarati was in Gujarat, so they had become two states. Annexation of Goa. In 1961, India conducted Operation Vijay, where approximately 30,000 Indian soldiers invaded Goa and Daman Diu. These were Portuguese colonies for 450 years. The Indian government tried diplomatically to get Goa, but the Portuguese rejected and suppressed the civilian movements for freedom harshly. The whole operation concluded within 36 hours, as on ground there was huge disparity between India and Portuguese, as only about 3,000 soldiers were protecting Goa. India got away with this invasion because at that time the world was against colonization, and also Portugal influence waned and was considered minor colonial power by other countries. Indochina War. India-China long-standing border disagreements culminated in war in 1961. This war was not intervened in by major powers at that time because both the USSR and the US were busy in the Cold War. Also, India's stand was non-aligned to any major powers, and this made the US give only limited help, like ammunition and emergency supplies. As for the USSR, it took a neutral stand in this war because both China and India were its allies, and even offered to mediate between India and China. The duration of the war was just a month, and the Chinese army steamrolled to Aksai Chin and the Northeast Frontier Agency. India was not prepared for this war, and its soldiers were ill-equipped and inferior to the Chinese army. The war ended when the People's Liberation Army unilaterally declared a ceasefire. After the ceasefire, the Chinese army retreated from the Northeast Frontier Agency but retained Aksai Chin. This is the second time India lost territory since its creation, first with Pakistan on Kashmir and now with Aksai Chin, which India considers part of Ladakh. Creation of Haryana. India did not stop reorganizing its states on a linguistic basis after the loss of the war to China. In 1966, Haryana was carved out from Punjab as both the Haryanvi and Punjabi communities desired their separate states. Haryanvi-speaking areas were grouped as Haryana state, and Punjabi-speaking areas as Punjab state. However, disagreements between the two new states did not stop, as both wanted Chandigarh as their capital. This issue was further intensified because geographically, Chandigarh is located at the border of the two states. Punjab wanted it because, after the partition, Lahore was lost to Pakistan, and Chandigarh was built as a replacement. Haryana claimed that Chandigarh was located in Haryanvi-speaking areas, and they had also given up access to some parts of Punjab. This led the central government to declare Chandigarh as a union territory. It would serve as the capital of both states but would not be part of either state. Of a new country in subcontinent. The partition created Pakistan, a Muslim country for Muslims, but it consisted of two distinct regions, culturally and linguistically. West Pakistan, modern-day Pakistan, was a mix of Urdu, Punjabi, Sindhi, and Pashto speakers. In contrast, East Pakistan, modern-day Bangladesh, was a predominantly Bengali-speaking community. The differences worsened due to economic disparity. Even though East Pakistan contributed significantly to Pakistan's economy through its jute production, resources and development were mostly concentrated in West Pakistan. East Pakistan's population was larger than West Pakistan's, yet it was not adequately represented in the military and government. The breaking point came when Sheikh Mujibur Rahman of the Awami League won a majority of seats from East Pakistan in the general elections, but General Yahya Khan and Zulfikar Ali Bhutto refused to transfer power. These issues fueled resentment between the two regions and led to West Pakistan invading East Pakistan. India initially covertly supported Bangladesh and trained the East Pakistani guerrilla force, Mukti Bahini. Key powers like America and China supported Pakistan's invasion, emboldening the Pakistanis to bomb Indian air bases. This forced India to enter the war along with the Mukti Bahini. The war ended within 13 days and was a roaring success for India. Pakistani soldiers surrendered, and a new country, Bangladesh, was created. This reduced the threat of Pakistan from two sides for India and cemented its position as a regional superpower in South Asia. The disadvantages of this war were that it was very costly, taking a toll on the Indian economy. Additionally, almost 10 million refugees from East Pakistan flooded into India, creating further chaos. As for cartographers like us, India's eastern borders were altered forever because of the creation of Bangladesh. Annexation of Sikkim. Sikkim was a British protectorate and became an Indian protectorate in 1950. Rising tensions and discontent among the Sikkim population against the monarchy and in favor of democracy created an opportunity. India took advantage of the situation and conducted a referendum, where the majority voted overwhelmingly to join India. In 1975, Sikkim became the 22nd state of India. This merger was highly favorable for India as it extended its Himalayan footprint and gained a strategic advantage over its neighbors. Reorganization of northeastern states and Goa. After Goa was annexed from Portugal in 1961, it became a union territory due to its distinct culture and history, separate from other Indian territories. However, the increasing demand from the Goan public for autonomy and political representation led the Indian government to create Goa as a state. Arunachalpradesh was part of the Northeast Frontier Agency from 1954. The Indian government made it a state because of its strategic importance, as it forms a border with China and Myanmar. Additionally, the government recognized the distinct culture, ethnicity, and social identity of Arunachal Pradesh. By awarding statehood, the Indian government aimed to integrate these regions into the Indian political system and improve administrative independence. This move also addressed the local population's desire for more political representation and autonomy. Mizoram, which was previously part of Assam, faced rising insurgency due to the local population's discontent and their desire for a separate ethnic and regional identity. In response, the Indian government granted statehood in the hope of achieving peace, development, and greater autonomy. The Indian Union reorganized states periodically to reduce regional disparities and foster national unity among the states. This trend continued, particularly in the northeastern states, for reasons related to strategic concerns, cultural and ethnic diversity, political stability, and administrative efficiency. Creation of Uttarakhand, Jharkhand, and Chhattisgarh. These states were created because the local populations demanded separate states to protect their identity and promote economic development. Uttarakhand was carved out of Uttar Pradesh due to neglect, lack of attention, and underdevelopment. The mountainous and rural terrain of Uttarakhand posed unique challenges. The Indian government established the new state to ensure better administrative focus and to preserve the local culture and identity. Similarly, Jharkhand was created from Bihar, with a significant portion of its population being tribal. This community faced social and economic neglect under the Bihar administration, which fueled demands for statehood. The hope was that statehood would lead to improved governance and development. Since its formation, Jharkhand has made notable progress in infrastructure and education, though challenges persist in other sectors. Chhattisgarh followed a similar trajectory, being carved out of Madhya Pradesh due to its comparative neglect and underdevelopment. The Indian government aimed to address these disparities by creating a new state, thereby fostering economic growth and addressing social issues. Interestingly, this round of state reorganization did not prioritize linguistic alignment, as had been the case in earlier instances. Instead, it focused on improving socio-economic conditions in backward regions, reflecting the Indian government's evolving stance on addressing internal disparities. Formation of Telangana. Telangana was part of the Hyderabad princely state, which merged with India in 1948. In 1956, it merged with Andhra Pradesh, as both regions predominantly spoke Telugu, aligning with India's linguistic reorganization of states. Although both regions share the Telugu language, differences have surfaced over the years. Small distinctions have been magnified, with many in Telangana feeling it has a unique cultural identity, reflected in its dialects, traditions, and festivals. Additionally, people in Telangana believe they were neglected in development, job opportunities, and resource allocation. Despite being rich in resources like coal and water, the population felt the benefits disproportionately favored coastal Andhra Pradesh. Persistent agitations and strikes eventually led the central government to carve out Telangana as India's 29th state. Jammu and Kashmir demotion to Union territory. In 2019, Article 370 was abrogated, removing the special status from Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh were reduced to 2 union territories and came under the direct control of the Indian government. This reorganization is markedly different from all other reorganizations because, in all other cases, statehood was granted to its people, but in this case, the statehood was taken away from the people of this region. We won't delve deeply into whether the abrogation is right or wrong because this video is not about that. However, my opinion is that the entire process was not done democratically. As we've seen in this video, when local people demand statehood and the government accepts it, this is not the case here. It was more of a top-down approach, which is undemocratic. The reason the government gave for the abrogation and demotion of Jammu and Kashmir was due to insurgency. The government promised to reduce insurgency and improve economic development. However, after 5 years, there is still no visible improvement, and local insurgency has increased, along with insurgents from Pakistan, which is a grave situation. This entire process raises the question of whether the center can take statehood from any Indian state. This move by the Indian government sets a dangerous precedent. I will leave you with this gloomy thought. Conclusion. The evolution of Indian maps are not just about lines on maps. They tell a story of hope, struggle, and change, the story of our nation and its resilience. So, friends, we are at the end of the video, and if you are still with me, please write what these changes mean to you. And before signing off, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more such stories. Thank you.